Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today the final count is in Israel's fourth serial elections. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin beginning now to set appointments with the various party heads to discuss recommendations for prime minister and a functional coalition government. But the public is pretty skeptical that any talks might actually bear fruit, given the renewed political deadlock, with both the right and left blocs coming up short of the 61-seat minimum to form a coalition. Joining us to discuss, though, is political commentator Tammi Molad Hayo and former Likud Knesset member and president of the Likud Supreme Court, Michael Kleiner. Thank you both so much for being with us. I'm really excited to discuss this. Now, I don't know about you, though. I don't see a clear coalition in any direction. Am I being naive, or are we doomed to repeat elections this summer? Tammi, I'll start with you.
Well, you know, the grown-up thing is not to reach a fifth election because the country needs stability. But I don't see a way to form a coalition that will last. Maybe they will be able to play the puzzle in a way that will create a coalition, but it's not going to last long, I'm afraid. And I think it's very saddening because we really need stability. There are quite a few big challenges ahead, and not in the long run, right? Just in the short run. So we need a government.
Michael?
But unfortunately, I'm not very optimistic about that.
Mathematically speaking, if you add up all the declaration of the heads of the parties before the election, with whom they will form a government, with whom they never will form a government, they will never sit together. So the only conclusion is very soon, 3 months from now, the election for the 25th Knesset. But I have a feeling that the sentiment, the public sentiment, the sentiment between the leaders of the party, the sentiment between the elected members to the Knesset against the additional election is so strong that some way out will be found. And I disagree with Tammi. The moment a government will be formed, it may last. Most chances are it will be a government at the end of the day headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, because he is the biggest party by far. But there's also a slight possibility that everyone else will unite behind Naftali Bennett, and they will form a government with Naftali Bennett. I don't know for how much time.
Well, so to maybe follow up with you, Michael, and to bounce off of something that Tammi said earlier, what is the incentive really to maintain that government? Because you're saying that the public would not allow it, that the Knesset members won't allow us to go back to fifth elections. But what exactly is the incentive for the current Knesset, the 24th Knesset, to remain? Because ultimately, if we go back to fifth elections, it'll be largely the same people getting back into Knesset over and over again.
No, I will give you one example. For my party, the Likud, we have a decision of the Supreme Court, which I'm heading, that was authorized also by the Prime Minister and the head of our party, Benjamin Netanyahu, that in this election, if we are heading to a fifth election, never mind what, there will be primaries in the Likud. Many existing members in the Likud are not sure whether they will be elected in such primaries, so they will try their best to form a government. One must also take into consideration that there is another incentive. In this Knesset, you have 70 to 75 members who are part of the Israeli right. The only reason they don't form a right-wing government is the issue of Netanyahu. Netanyahu was elected by the Likud with a big majority, and no other party can dictate Likud who will head it. So we will have to overcome the problem of Gideon Sa'ar and maybe also Victor Lieberman, who declared they will never go with Netanyahu, and find a way to overcome this obstacle. On the other hand, of course, if Bennett will be ready to head the government and all the left will be ready to support Bennett, which is an integral part of the Israeli right, so maybe there will be sometime a government. It will be less homogeneous. So I don't believe it can last for a long time.
Tammi?
Okay, so we know that maybe some of the Knesset members from the Likud would prefer to have a stable government, but I'm not sure about Netanyahu himself, and I'm quite sure that in the majority of the other parties, people don't really. Most of the politicians, they can't help themselves. I think politicians most of them, they like elections more than they like the playing the role of Knesset members. It's bigger than them. And that's not because they're not serious people, it's just because we have had so many elections. I think that many of them just are, well, that's the only thing they know, running to election, playing the political game of election, before election, right after election. So I'm not sure. And by the way, I'm not sure, Michael, that this time you really for sure are going to have primaries in the Likud, because if there's going to be a fifth round, then maybe there won't be enough time. And maybe the best thing for the Likud, well, that will be the decision, or what Netanyahu will say, that the best thing is not to have primaries in the Likud. And that will work fine for many of the Likud members.
Michael?
First of all, I'm sure that there will be primaries, and that this is a decision of the Supreme Court, and it was a compromise, and it was also reached this time because of a commitment by the Prime Minister to support these primaries, and I don't see any possibility it won't happen. I must also add that in this Knesset, you have a majority of 63 members of Knesset who didn't commit themselves to be against Netanyahu, including Bennett's Yamina, and including the United Arab List. The United Arab List made an historic change before the election, going to the public and said, no, we don't want to continue the policy to be against Israel and for the right of return and to be committed to the destruction of Israel. On the contrary, we want to join the government. We want to speak about civil issues. We want to leave the political issues to Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian authority. We don't want to change even the Chok HaLeom, the law of the nation. This also is a question for Likud to decide. And we want only to do for representing the Arab public, the Arab people, and allow them integrate in the Israeli society. This is a very important change. I hope they will be part of any government. As the United Arab List, it's totally different than the United Arab Front, Hadash, of Ayman Uda and Ahmad Tibi. And I believe they should be a part of the government, not disappointing, not the leaders, not Mansour Abbas, but not disappointing the Arab voters. They prefer Netanyahu, and I believe that if Netanyahu makes an agreement with this United Arab List, Bennett will join, and maybe this will be also the excuse of people, for people like Gideon Saar and Benny Begin, to change their commitment, because they say because of this historic event of a part of the Arab public joining the Israeli government headed by Likud, this is such an historic event that we want to join this government.
Well, I have to say that I completely disagree. I think that the Ram, the United Front, is well, it's interesting because they're saying publicly, they're saying very different things than what Michael is saying now. They cannot let go of the nation law. It's something that for Israeli Arabs is in their hearts. It's very, very something that really, really bothers them. I think what happened, Michael, is that what the Arab public has said to the United Party is that, with all due respect, even when you have your own agenda, it doesn't mean that you're not also a citizen of Israel, and that means that they want to take part. I'm not sure they want to take part in Netanyahu's government. I'm quite sure they will not sit with Ben Gvir and Smotrich, the religious Zionist party. And so I think it's going to be very, very difficult, and they will not be able to sit in the same government with these people, because these people have already said that they, as far as they're concerned, that's not a possibility. So if somebody doesn't want them, why should they agree to sit with them? The problem is that if Netanyahu will be able to form a right-wing coalition, it will be very extreme. He will have a lot of issues with the international opinion, because what Smotrich is offering his voters, what he's promising his voters, are things that Netanyahu cannot give him. On the other hand, if Lapid or Bennett will be able to form this change coalition, as they call it, There are too many parties, too many interests in there, so it will not last for long. That's why I'm saying I'm not very optimistic. Hopefully, whichever part will be able to form a stable government at least for 2 years, at least. I don't think it's going to happen, and I think something. In a way, we can complain about our politicians, and we have a lot of reasons to complain about them. But the truth is that if you look at what the Israeli person of the street, what the plain Israeli said, looking at the election at the poll results, well, we have a real issue in the Israeli society. We are very, very divided. We're divided between those who are Democrats, pro-civil rights, pro-change, pluralism, and on the other hand, you have what Smotrich, the ultra-religious parties are standing for, and that's extremism. And I think this is something that the Israeli public has to start addressing, because we're dealing with elections all the time. We're not dealing with some very important questions about the Israeli society. Where and who do we want to? Where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? And before we decide that, and we have a clear election result, I think we are doomed to have more and more elections.
The only clear election is that there is a 63 coalition. The United Arab List said they don't disqualify even Ben Gvir and Smotrich until.
I have to agree with Tammi in that, publicly speaking, Mansour Abbas, chairman of the Ram United Arab List party, has said that neither he nor the United Arab List under Ayman Odeh have said that they have any intention of ever sitting with Ben Gvir and the religious Zionists.
I'm dealing with it, so let's make it the correct order. In the first time he was asked several days ago, he said, I don't disqualify no one who doesn't disqualify me. After Smotrich disqualified him, he said he disqualifies Smotrich and Ben Gvir. And now I believe the result is that at the first stage, there should be formed a government, a minority government headed by Netanyahu with the religious parties and Yamina, and both the National Zionists of Smotrich and Ben Gvir and Mansour Abbas will support from the outside, and later we shall live and see. The Mansour Abbas, important for him is not being part of the government, but the agreement and the achievement for the Arab society, which is his goal. One additional point that was expressed.
Why would Mansour Abbas agree to that?
One second. Issues, there is a lot of resemblance between Smotrich and Mansour Abbas. They are a conservative right-wing party that on issues of the part of religious courts and things like that, and they're for example, same-sex marriages, Smotrich and Mansour Abbas are very close, and it's a big list. On most civil issues, there is a lot of resemblance between the conservative attitudes of National Zionism and the United Arab List.
So assuming that the United Arab List, Ram, can get over their issues with the religious Zionists, and assuming that the religious Zionists can get over their issues with Ram, you still also, again, you have Bennett to fill that gap, or Gideon Sa'ar, both of whom have said that they don't want to sit with the United Arab List either.
No. Bennett was very, very mild on this, and Sa'ar did say it about the United Arab Front, not about the United Arab List. There is, as I said, the Israeli public doesn't differentiate yet, but it will become very clear that one Arab party is still committed to the destruction of the state of Israel, and the other Arab party wants to integrate the Arab society in Israeli society. And everybody saw this, not surgeon, this colonel or captain that was interviewed, the Arab Muslim woman that is going to bring the story of the Holocaust to the whole Arab world. And this is a symbol of the young generation in the Arab society who doesn't want Ayman Odeh, who doesn't want Mahmoud Abbas. They are not concerned what's going on in Ramallah. They want to be a part of the Israeli society, and they are proud of Israel, proud of the Israeli flag, and proud of the Israeli national anthem.
Tammi, would you agree with
I
that?
think-
That
I think-
this party
I think
has
we
shifted
know very
so much?
different.
Didn't
Sorry?
you see this officer? This Seren, what's captain?
You have these
Muslim captain in Yad Vashem.
every year, all the time. Michael, that doesn't mean anything. Mansour Abbas is not a Zionist. He does
No, he's
not.
not.
He does not see Israel as the Jewish homeland and with the national law. You should have heard him along the way. It's amazing what an election and what what interests can do. It doesn't change the real politics. It doesn't change what people believe.
One at a time. One at a time. Michael, please hold on.
Expected here. When Sadat came and said, I want to go to the Knesset in Jerusalem, everybody forgot that he was an admirer of Adolf Hitler before. I don't look at the past. I'm looking at the present and the future. They made a radical change, went to the public, not like Yitzhak Rabin who said he will support the Ramat Golan before the election, and after the election, he said he's ready to give up the Golan. He came to the public before the election, said, I'm going to make a turnabout, I'm going to go with the Israelis to the coalition, preferably with the Likud, and he got a mandate.
I have to say, I think very highly about Michael, and I think he usually knows what he's talking about. But in this case, I think Michael, your wishful thinking is overcoming your logic, because
you have to admit, Tammi, that
2 months.
Mansour Abbas has made a very big change in terms of his pragmatism. You've admitted this much as well.
True, but he did not become Zionist, and he said so. He will not let go of the national law. He said so. He will not sit with Ben Gvir and Smotrich. He said so, and he said all these things in the past few days since the election. It's not enough just to really want something with all our hearts. And by the way, I'm not against Mansour Abbas. I'm just thinking that wanting something is not enough.
And he also explained that there is equality in other laws.
Well, there isn't really equality in other laws. We don't have that really, and that's the problem with the national law. And you know it, Michael, and they know it too. And even the idea that Mansour Abbas, the idea that Mansour Abbas will say, okay, everything I stood for doesn't count anymore. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to support Netanyahu from outside. I'm going to be in the same seats with Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who have already said that they don't see him as a partner for anything. And the Arab public will say, fine, this is what we wanted. No, what Mansour Abbas wants is to be in the government. He wants a vote in the government, and he is correct. That's pragmatism, not just being another supporter and getting, I don't know, a few million shekels for something. What he is suggesting is that if you are willing to include the Israeli Arabs, then the Israeli Arabs will take part in the game. Including them in the game is giving them a real part in the government. Is Netanyahu willing to do that? If he's willing to do that, well, then the Meshutefet, the Ayman Oda is also willing to do that. If he's offered a real,
so let's hear.
Not friendships, but
let's hear the response.
Always
Michael.
compare Oda to Abbas, and they are the total opposites today. And I believe I'm very much in favor that Mahmoud Abbas will be part of the Israeli government. For starters, because of the problem of Smotrich, until other parties will join the coalition in the future, like Saar and Gantz, he will be from outside. The moment there will be a majority that will allow it, I want Abbas to be a part of the government.
I mean, I have to say, I'm pretty shocked to hear it, because it does sound like you. I mean, how can you get a coalition with the outside support of Abbas without bringing him in?
I believe that if he gets what he needs for the Arab society, I know that he will be ready in the beginning to support the government in outside. It's difficult for the Israeli public to swallow and to understand and to internalize the change that happened. So he also realizes this. So maybe we need a transition period that we will support in from outside until everybody will understand the depths of the change in the Arab society he represents, and then it will be ripe to bring him into the government.
All right, now I want to, in the last couple minutes that we have here, I want to maybe change topic and move towards the idea of, or maybe we could come up with some ideas here of how we could prevent this repeat election phenomenon from happening in the future, because I think we can all agree that that is really the biggest issue in the last couple of years. Tammi, do you have any suggestion of how the government might reform to prevent this from happening in the future, and which party holds that ideology?
Well, there are quite a few parties that are suggesting different changes into the system. All these ideas can work. The thing is that I think it's a cultural thing. We are going through a phase, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's puberty for Israel, as we've only been around for 70 years. And so, but it's really a cultural thing. The real question is not if it will be worthwhile for the parties. The real question is whether the people who are going into politics do they really believe that what they are going into is not a game, it's not a profession, it's being a messenger of the Israeli public. It's working for the Israeli public. Is it something that is bigger than them and their own private interests? Right now, most politicians don't see the public office that way, and they used to, but they don't anymore. So I think there is some kind of we need to go through growth, the Israeli society as a whole. At the end of the day, the Israeli politicians are the people that we, the Israeli public, are sending as our representatives. So in a way, what we see in the Knesset is what's going on in the Israeli society in a nutshell, and in a much more extreme way. But it's not just the problem of the politics. You don't get better government by creating better incentives for parties. You get better government by getting better people with a stronger sense of duty. That's how you get a better government.
So Michael, I'll turn the question over to you. And isn't there a way to incentivize a better government, or is Tammi correct, and that's not really the way to go?
Let me start with the importance to have democracy within the parties. I believe that democracy, like in Likud, Labour Party, Meretz, and the Arab parties, is very important. And there's a phenomena of instead of a party that chooses a leader, having a leader who has a party in his pocket appointing the people like Yair Lapid is very dangerous. He's allowed to do anything. He doesn't have to consult with a body, a democratic body. And if somebody is against him, he throws him away. This is very dangerous. And that's why I was very happy that Merav Michaeli saved the Labour Party, which can be, together with Meretz, the basis of having a real democratic party to balance Likud, and not this, I don't know the word to describe phenomena like Lapid who has a party, Lieberman who has a party, or others. Secondly, about the system, if you would ask in England the Liberals or the SDP, that was Social Democratic Party, they would say that proportional election is the ideal system because the grass in the neighbor's yard is always greener. And they speak about the representation of views in the British society. The Israeli Knesset is about representation. We are a very, a knowledgeable nation. There are many nuances in Israeli society, and the idea that are all represented in the Knesset is very important. Of course, the opposite is the British system of first to pass the bar, which brings you, most of the cases, a government which can rule and has no problem, but it distorts the wish of the people, and the views are not represented. And you can fall to a government that will get an artificial majority and make a policy for 4 or 5 years, which is irreversible on the political field. For example, a left-wing government will make concessions that will endanger the future of the country, and you can do nothing.
All right. Well, we have a lot left to discuss. Of course, we never get through it all. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Tammi, Molad, Hayo, and Michael Kleiner for joining us. I'm Aaron Porras. Everybody watching, please tune in next time on Insider for more on everything Israel. And if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover next, let us know about it in the comment sections online. Finally, for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube at ILTV.tv channels. Thank you so much. Be well. We'll see you soon.